I've been doing trivia hosting, and I've got some miscellaneous trivia that kind of floats around in my head now because of hosting trivia throughout the week.
Hit me with one.
Okay, what was the zip code to Dawson's Creek?
90210.
Nope.
867-5309. Right? Is that the song?
Marcus,
You really think I'm going to know this?
69420.
90108. It's 90108.
I'll never remember that.
Yeah, you will. 90108.
I've never even seen the show. Is there an actual creek in this show named Dawson? I mean, like, I'm being real here. I've never seen the show.
Pun. 90108.
I still don't get it.
That's the theme song. I don't want to win.
Oh.
Hey, everybody. I'm Dane Holland, and thanks, I think.
I'm Austin Shazam Pfeiffer, and I bring you again Southern Poets.
I'm Marcus, the 42nd brother known as I'm Electric Man.
I'm Austin Tiny Zent, and welcome to our final episode of this week.
I almost had a heart attack here on Nerd It Through the Grapevine, the podcast where four best friends gather weekly to talk about our favorite parts of past, present, and future nerd culture. And within the past week, it ended last week, right? Obi-Wan Kenobi, the TV series.
It is over.
It's done. It was 6 episodes.
I had homework to do, and
You
I didn't do it.
And if you need to step out, let me know, because it's about to get spoily up in
care
here.
anymore.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, we're fixing to spoil what's gone on with that. So if you would like, skip 30 minutes ahead so you don't hear any of this. But
And then come back and listen.
yeah, and then come back after you've watched it. Book Marcus.
I get it.
missed
It's
it.
a pun.
It's your name.
Marcus. Book Marcus.
Book Marcus.
Oh,
It's
okay.
funny.
Well,
Well, to us.
I don't know if it's funny.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
It's over, and we wanted to talk about what we felt about it. Yeah? Well,
Correct. Well, I mean, we've talked about this will be the third time we've talked about it. We talked about it before it ever came out, and kind of in the sense of what we wanted it to be. We kind of looked at the first 3 episodes in one and last time we talked about it, and now we just kind of want to talk about it as a whole, or at least like the last 3 episodes.
Yeah, I would say start with kind of the last 3, and then like kind of how that fit in with the entirety of it.
Right, because I don't know. I mean, I think really the last 3 were almost like the first 3. I mean, there was ups and downs, right? We were kind of talking off air, and I was kind of saying that like sometimes when they would be doing one character story and they'd cut away to another one, and it would just seem like the story's progress was just coming to a grinding halt sometimes. Because we kind of rescued the princess twice.
Yeah.
In back-to-back episodes, or at least an episode in between.
Right.
And I thought that was kind of a waste of time.
The 4th one is also where it introduces this thing that I thought was only going to happen once, but it happened more than once, is whenever, for some reason, none of the other characters in the scene can hear people speaking plainly and clearly and loud about their secret plans. Because Paula, the character that's she's defected from the Empire, but she's still posing as an Imperial officer, and she's helping Obi-Wan go get Leia, and she's sitting at a comm station just kind of talking to Obi-Wan through getting him into the place, and the dude sitting right next to her on the computer just like, I don't know, he's just not really paying attention, I guess. But and there's somebody else behind her too, and she's just kind of openly talking into this microphone to Obi-Wan, and it was this weird, it's one of those things that takes you away from it, because you're seeing that happen, and you're like, wouldn't they hear her? Like, I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to have to think like, wait, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, you don't want to be thrown into like real world things in a world of fantasy.
Right.
Because you're sitting there thinking to yourself, like, all this mystical stuff can happen, all of this, the Force, these prophecies, yada, da, da, da. Then all of a sudden you're sitting here between the distance and me and Tiny, and you're having a conversation that's at this volume right here, and you expect Tiny to not hear the conversation. It's not happening.
Wait, what was you saying?
Dadgummit.
Because the same thing happens later whenever Obi-Wan is talking to Reva through a door, like a blast door, and all the stormtroopers are right beside Reva.
Just several feet behind her, and he's like, I really brought them here to you. Da, da, da. You know, like, you're not bringing them to me, I'm bringing them to you. Like, he's coming here and you can betray him. Do you not say something?
Reva, on the other hand, for the second half, did get more character development.
Yeah, I think she did better for sure.
She did.
It still wasn't my favorite. I mean, it just was not the most compelling part of the show.
Yeah.
I mean, because let's face it, Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen being on screen together, that's kind of what I feel like most Star Wars fans wanted.
Right.
We did get a really, I thought, cool episode. Well, let me just go back to kind of what I was wanting out of the Obi-Wan series.
Yeah.
And then kind of versus what we got. You know, I was wanting a kind of a more personal, kind of introspective story from Obi-Wan's perspective, you know, going back over these past traumas of his friend Anakin's fall to the dark side. We got some of that. We definitely got some of that. Those visions of him, you know, in the back to tank and Vader in the back to tank, you know, kind of juxtaposing or whatever the two characters, and, you know, Ewan McGregor emoting, you know, sadness, you know, so we got that, but it wasn't as deep as I wanted. But then once we start like flashing back to a previous training session, and then they're in each other's minds almost, because they're both kind of remembering this encounter and making decisions based on their past experiences together.
Right.
In that episode. And I thought that was done really, really well. And then, of course, in the last episode, that was some of the best Star Wars ever.
Absolutely.
With Vader's mask being chopped off and actually seeing Anakin in behind the mask,
right?
And the line, "I killed it. I killed Anakin."
Yeah,
and that gives a further context even when Obi-Wan tells Luke that Vader killed your father.
Right. It's straight from the horse's mouth in that situation. Like,
and
Vader
so
told me.
I really appreciated that, and I think that was absolutely the best thing to come of the Obi-Wan series, as you know, because I just feel like they should have spent more time doing stuff like that instead of the young Leia, which the actress did great. It's just that I just didn't think it needed to be there at all. She can have her own show or something, you know, but I just didn't feel it. Wasn't feeling it.
It was cool that she was in it to some extent, but it was in a lot of ways too centric around that character.
I thought so. Yeah, they just gave her too much.
Yeah, like
when it's supposed to be an Obi-Wan show.
Exactly. Yeah. And like she couldn't fix her little droid, but they put her up in the ductwork to fix the thing to close the hatches. So
plus, I mean, there was one episode.
How does that make sense?
There was one episode where I kind of felt like she was just kind of bossing. She wasn't really bossing Obi-Wan around, but he was telling her like, "No, don't talk, Leia. Let me do the talk." You know, he was trying to protect her, and she's just blowing through every one of his orders. I mean, you know, and it's just like, come on,
she did that throughout
10.
the whole series.
Yeah, and so to me, it just kind of rang as a little unrealistic. I mean, it's obviously Star Wars; it's not very realistic to begin with, but you know what I mean. It kind of shatters that suspension of disbelief.
That was just Leia. I think that was just them going, Leia has always been Leia. Like the Leia you know later, she's always been like that.
Right.
So,
but especially at a 10-year-old, I just feel like we should have gotten a more vulnerable Leia. I mean, she's 10 years old. She hasn't become that strong woman yet.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know. I'm not, like I said, I don't think it just like was terrible. It just wasn't my cup of tea. I wish she could have had her moment, you know, elsewhere in another show or something.
If Obi-Wan wasn't so eloquent in the way that he spoke, it would kind of bring me a little bit more into the way that I feel about certain parts of the series, because if he would show up and just pop out of his little his little shuttle and just be like, "Well, I left Luke alone again, guys. How are y'all?" Like, I'd feel a whole lot better. I'd feel a whole lot better, because he's there to protect Luke on Tatooine. That's his job. His role on Tatooine is,
and he almost failed. He basically did fail.
And he did fail. I mean, he straight up got kidnapped by Reva because if it wasn't for her like moral last second code, there would be no Luke Skywalker.
And then he's just going to let her walk away.
Who you choose to be is up to you now.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I get what they were going for.
Yeah.
I'm Reva.
I just don't think it executed very well. I think honestly, the show did more for me to make Anakin actually feel like Darth Vader than it did for Obi-Wan or Leia. I don't feel like seeing them at this point in their fictional lives did anything to improve the characters other than Anakin.
Right. No, and the dual voice of Anakin
That
and
was-
Vader
that is
through the
brilliant.
helmet that was
Thank
cut
you.
through, that was a top 5 Star Wars moment for me
Absolutely.
ever.
And the glow of the blue lightsaber when
Yes.
he's kind of maybe implying that some Anakin is slipping through, but then the red lightsaber overtakes it.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Just
absolutely amazing.
It seemed like someone else had written and shot that scene, that fight scene, as opposed to most of the rest of the show. It's like they put all their effort. It's like this was the only thing they had written down from the start. Like, this is a moment that must happen. And everything else was like, well, we need at least 6 episodes, so we got to
Yeah.
do some of this stuff to fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
And I think what you guys didn't like was it was more of an Uncle Ben show.
Yes.
Which, no Spider-Man involved. But it was Uncle Ben Kenobi as opposed to an Obi-Wan Kenobi dealing with the Darth Vader thing.
Yes.
And
that's what I wanted.
Right.
And I think what we got is like what you said, an Uncle Ben, and with a little bit of shades of what I wanted.
Yeah. Well, so I didn't really mind some of the Uncle Ben-ness. I think part of the problem is the same issue that Book of Boba Fett had. They tried to cram so much into so few episodes. It's like you have more time than you would for a film, yet you don't have enough time to fully flesh out this arc that you're going for. And so it was just, let's hit these points real fast, let's show Princess Leia as a little kid, and if the intent was for her to always be the one to take charge, okay, we're going to let her do that here and here, but just it almost didn't make sense because it was so short and there was so much information they was trying to pack in.
Plus, to your point, there was even kind of a comedic, oh no, some random rebel fighter pilot got killed. Yeah. And it's like, okay.
Like, no
and
one cares.
Yeah, it was like almost honestly funny because it was like, I don't even know who just died, but everybody on screen's like sad.
Yeah.
But another comparison with Boba Fett, I'm glad you mentioned that, because these are 2 characters that have already existed in Star Wars, and they're just getting more because the fans have wanted more. And with like Mando, brand new, Rogue One, brand new, like characters that we've never seen or heard of before. And they are much more successful than this idea of taking these characters that already exist, that fans have had all these years to make up their own headcanon of all these epic stories and everything that happened in the novelizations that, or not novelizations, but novels that is no longer canon or whatever. So now you've got all this stuff that's epic and things like that. And so then they bring you this material that everyone's been begging for, and you finally do it, but it's almost doomed to fail. Like, because how do you live up to all the expectations of these characters that honestly didn't have a shitload of screen time before, like when they originally aired? Because before the prequels, Obi-Wan was, he wasn't in it a ton. More than like Boba Fett was. But
it's honestly funny that you say that, because it's almost like now young Leia may have actually had more screen time than older Leia. Like, she may have more hours in the character than Carrie Fisher even.
She may. That's interesting.
Like, when you go back in time to visit a character before we actually were introduced to them,
Yeah.
I just don't think it's very hard to help make that content enhance the character.
Yeah.
Most of the time when we flash back to a younger version of a character, it just tends to not work as well, I don't think, sometimes.
I got my Qui-Gon ghost.
You did get your Qui-Gon
But was
ghost.
it what you wanted?
No.
Right. Yeah. It was a taste.
I got it for just as soon as I saw him, I started crying. Then they started talking, and my tears stopped. So it's like, oh, there you are. You just went ready to see me. Like it could have been more, but it wasn't. And also, it got me to thinking while I'm watching it. Reva got two red sabers through the chest in her lifetime, and neither one of them killed her.
It was blue the first time, actually. It was blue, remember? Because Anakin still had his blue lightsaber.
Yep, it was a blue one. It was a blue one, then a red one.
That's an actually moment.
Yep, it was blue and then red. So 2 lightsabers through the chest, okay? But then my boy Qui-Gon, he just gets one, and he's done. Just absolutely done. Like, I guess I'll just die.
Yeah.
Like, that's that. It's exactly what it is. Like, I guess I'll just die. Like,
I feel like
I
its
feel you on that.
directionality is come in sideways, where Reva just went like piercing.
It's a show full of such good ideas and poor execution.
Yeah,
Which-
and just too much squeezed into it. I agree with
I'm
you.
going to
Ronnie.
attack the Dark Lord of the Sith. What am I going to do? Am I going to put my blade hilt directly to his back and engage the blade so he gets a blade through him? Or am I going to engage the blade, make a noise, and then try to hit him even though he's one of the strongest Force users around? I'm going to yell at him. Ah! Oh, it failed.
But you have to
Wow.
admit, that was a really cool fight scene, though, because you saw that Vader doesn't necessarily need his lightsaber to defend himself.
When he was mopping the floor with her, that was great.
Because it's
So
like, we've
cool.
seen the Force used in combat, but not like that.
he stopped her lightsaber. Yeah, that was awesome.
Multiple times.
And where Vader was so strong in that specific style of the Force was only, I mean, pretty much because, in my head at least, I don't know how canon it is, but that his body became robotic, and that was his peak of Force at the point where he got that robotic
Actually,
body.
the robot limbs, according to
George.
UA and George, actually held him back
Correct.
from his full potential.
About 80%, George said.
And his suit was actually painful, so he had to use the Force in order just to function in his daily life. So he's in fact less powerful than before he got, grilled like a hot dog.
That's
Correct.
nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
That's nuts.
Also, I think they spend a lot of time with like this continuity porn is what I've kind of heard the fandom kind of calling it lately.
Yeah.
It's like, do we really need to know where Luke got his little toy in
Right.
the original trilogy?
Yeah.
Or do we really need to know where the phrase, "Oh, hello there," came from? I mean, I just feel like they spend a lot of time thinking about, oh, well, that could explain why he said that the first time, which we don't need.
Right.
Spend more time on the characters. I think, that's obvious. I mean, you've got Ewan McGregor, one of the greatest actors in Hollywood,
Right.
as Obi-Wan Kenobi again. Let's just spend more time in his head and less time figuring out, oh, well, this is where the toy came from. And I don't know. It's calling it continuity porn. And I
Yeah.
think there's something to that.
And speaking on characters, they even introduced new characters in this show to where the point of the show is to learn more about characters we already know and what's happened in between screen times that we've seen. But of course, they're going to have to introduce new characters, and then they want to spend so much time on Reva specifically that the portrayal of the character wasn't that great, but the writing of the character was worse
It was
because
abysmal.
It was awful. But the idea, it's like someone in the brainstorming sesh was like, what if we had a youngling that survived, that joined forces with Vader and eventually tries to turn on him?
Yes.
And that's awesome.
Amazing.
That is so cool.
Well, it's just like Finn, a turned stormtrooper.
Exactly.
Great idea.
But
Not executed.
They didn't
very well.
execute it well, and it's weird that like all this talent writing these things, like they end it at the good idea stage, and where they try to flesh it out, no one's there to go, no, this doesn't sound good, let's tweak it, because they're trying to move on to the other stuff to where they're also wanting to do it's too much on the plate at once. And with Reva, I feel like something that would have helped her character is just simply a helmet, some kind of mask to where you didn't see what the character looks like. So she's going through all this stuff, plus the delivery of the lines would be a little bit better because it's behind a helmet, to where maybe they're a little bit more believable. Maybe she's more mysterious that way. And then the reveal of taking off the helmet, of you going, wait a second. And then it turns out she was the youngling, in the first scene.
Or just give her a gnarly scar from Anakin from way back then. Like, as a child, maybe he got her face, you know?
Yeah.
And then I think she would have kind of blended in with her Inquisitor family better.
The Inquisitors.
And then, I don't know. It's just, I think when she was talking to Obi-Wan and she was telling him her story, that was definitely her best performance.
Yes.
And I actually did get a little emotional. I do think, though, that because of things that actually happen in the modern world, very close in relation to that show coming out.
Right.
It just kind of was one of those coincidences that kind of made it really real in that moment.
For sure.
And so I think that was a pretty powerful moment when she kind of said that she was hiding and pretending to be dead.
Right.
When Anakin came in there. And so I just think that would have gave a lot of to her character if she kind of would have had a scar and we didn't know anything about it until that moment.
Yes.
Right.
And then don't stab her again unless she's going to die. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't
You can't
understand
take
that.
a stab from Vader twice and die.
Like a force
And not
choke
die.
and him have to leave the scene or whatever and just
Sure.
drop her and leave her there
Because
she's
some
trash,
masters came in.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Like she's nothing. I can just leave her here. She can do nothing to me.
Right. She's a youngling.
Like have his arrogance.
she'll probably die anyway.
Yeah. Have his arrogance leave her there, like choking and
Yes.
him just leave and then her go about her business as opposed to
And then
getting
cut her
stabbed
arm
twice.
off.
Yeah.
And don't stab her, cut her arm off.
Like,
and then she can be, because
They can match.
right. Well, every major Jedi gets their arm cut off.
Yeah.
Well, she's not a Jedi.
Not yet.
Well, she was though.
she may
as a
end
youngling.
up. She may end up
She
being one.
She wasn't even really a Padawan yet.
Okay, well, you know what
She
I
was a
mean.
youngling.
I'm just saying, people get their arms cut off all the time. There's lightsabers.
the Inquisitors were not menacing.
No.
It's you had one that was like the bad boss off of the original like Ninja Turtles movie. I don't know if you remember like the little guy, the never bow to your enemy, never take your eyes off an enemy. Yeah, that's who he reminded me of, just like that. I don't know. He was just not very good. And then you had the other one who's the Grand Inquisitor, like someone who's actually very menacing and scary to watch. And then you hear him talk and speak and his actions, and he's like a dude from Downton Abbey that showed up in like he showed up in cosplay, and he's like, I am part of the you will not, you're a Jedi, you will die. And it's awful because you got to think like these are the characters that are sending the Jedi running. They are in fear for their life from these people. I'm so scary. I've got you running. Get out of here, blue saber. I've got a red one that spins.
Lord Vader, your plan is really, really, really bad. Shut up. Follow Kenobi.
Well, I feel like in some ways they tried to give too much development to some of the side characters.
Right.
Like Paula, like I really didn't care that she, made these tally marks in her holster for every person she saved. Don't care. Don't need to know that. I just need to know that, she's an Imperial officer. She's betraying her people to make up for what she's done. Cool. That's awesome. And I will say she went out like a G. I appreciated that.
Yeah.
But all the little feel goods in between of her character really don't even matter.
I mean, because
it's not about her. It's about Obi-Wan and childhood Leia, apparently, because we got to have a kid in there. And Vader, which, I mean, I will say I thought it was one of the best on-screen portrayals of Darth Vader that I've seen because it showed his ruthlessness and his willingness to just murder hobo.
Yeah.
And I think if this show did not have to do with Vader, I think we would be okay with a lot of this other stuff. I think we'd be more okay. Like if Vader wasn't even announced as being part of this, it was just about Obi-Wan.
Adventures of Obi-Wan?
Obi-Wan being away, him coming in contact with Leia, yes, him leaving Luke alone on the planet whenever that was his self-appointed job. Like that part kind of blows.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think without Vader, I think this other stuff would have been fine, but Vader's there. Like every single second you do not have Vader and Obi-Wan on the screen needs to be gold. It needs to be something we care about.
Something essential.
Yes.
To their story. Or whatever plot we're going for.
You got to also think, though, like even like what's your idea of like her being behind a mask and it being different, maybe different line delivery. But you got to think you're dealing with Star Wars fans here. So the second you put a mask on her, they're just trying to make her like Kylo Ren. That's what they're trying. They're just trying to make her like Kylo Ren.
Everybody's going to complain about something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're doing it right now.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't. I mean, especially when it comes to these mega fandom areas like Star Wars. But I mean, I honestly feel like I'm not a hard person to please with stuff that can entertain me. I mean, I watched the 2019 Hellboy today and actually was a little entertained by it. Okay, I don't have super high standards for what can entertain me.
Well, and it's Star Wars, so I mean, it's like as much as great as it is, there's some really hokey stuff in the originals, especially the prequels. But it's like the prequels are looking even better now that after Disney's a couple of these last Disney releases. It's just almost like they don't quite understand Star Wars. I hate to say it.
They either don't understand or they don't give a shit.
But they have to give a shit because they've spent so much money on it.
But then why do they keep messing it up, Marcus?
That's a good question. I think that they just got too much executive powers going, oh, well, we need more young Leia.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. I think that is probably a lot to do with it. I mean, apparently the Rise of Skywalker's ending changed multiple times throughout the production
And
process.
That's what they settled
And
on.
Really?
And so did the end of Kenobi, because at the end of the Kenobi series, she was looking at Obi-Wan and he says, "You are who you choose to be," and she says, "Well, I'm Reva Skywalker." She buries the lightsaber in the sand, and she's got a yellow lightsaber out of nowhere.
no.
She just made it on the way. It was her lunch sack lightsaber.
And,
Yeah.
and for all the shitting on it, which is something that I mean, it's how we feel. So when we look back on it, it's what takes over the parts that we like.
Yeah.
But because I'd sent Marcus before, we sat down and recorded this, like some bullet points that I looked through for each episode, and there are moments in every episode that's good.
Absolutely.
That's quality, and it's like, man, this moment is so good. And it sucks because then you look at the surrounding moments and it's like, you cut away from this
Right.
for this?
Right.
Like, if you're going to cut away from Vader and Obi-Wan having this, like, reigniting, like, situation, it needs to be worth something. It
Yeah,
needs you need to be thinking while they're battling each other, oh, what's going on with these guys right now? Switch over to them, figure it out. But instead, you're going, yes, this is what we've always wanted, and scene cut, like, over to the next thing. And we didn't even get swipes, by the way.
No, we got
didn't get
like
screen
blocks.
swipes.
We got like blocked in.
Yeah.
But they went from like, here's some of the most epic stuff that we've seen, that we've been wanting this, to can Ice Cube's kid fix this trash compactor? Like, is it, in case you didn't know, the actor that played, what's his name? Rogu? What's it?
Roken.
Roken. Yeah, that's Ice Cube's son.
It is.
So
Oh, that's why he looks
cool.
like him. That makes sense.
yeah, so can Ice Cube's son fix this trash compactor, or will Obi-Wan finally get his closure? We'll find out here in a minute. Trash compactor.
Yeah.
I think his name is Ice Chip.
That is really funny.
And his best friend Ice Dale.
Crushed. Yeah.
The way the show ended, where we got your Qui-Gon, I kind of liked the part where he said you weren't ready yet, because the whole show he was struggling with connecting with the Force, and you got to be really in tune with the Force to be able to see a Force ghost. But I wanted the ending of the show to be where the show started. That's what I wanted. I wanted Obi-Wan on his own on Tatooine, going through trials and tribulations of protecting Luke from afar. And
He didn't do a good job with that with Anakin.
no,
Yeah,
Not
I
at
get
all.
it. Like,
Oh God.
not at all.
I think you're kind of hitting on much more of what I kind of said several episodes ago about what I was hoping for with the
Right.
Obi-Wan series.
Yeah, and I got a taste of it at the very end, and then credits roll, and it's like, okay, this is a limited series, it's over with,
Yeah.
and you gave me
Well,
what
I've seen. I mean, this could be.
But
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
you.
you're fine.
But I've seen clickbait. It could be clickbait and stuff. But I've seen that they're tossing around the idea of season 2.
Well, heck, everybody's already said that they would be in for it. Like, all the actors that are the big name actors that are involved with this series, like, yeah, let's do it again.
But here's the thing: I just don't think you can bring Vader back out for season
no,
2.
absolutely
No.
not.
Because then that starts to really encroach
No.
upon the original
No.
trilogy.
The next one would be Uncle Ben and Luke, instead of Uncle Ben and Leia. Like,
Yeah.
it would be more of that. Because in A New Hope, does Luke recognizes him as Old Man Ben, yeah?
Yeah,
I mean, he knows him as Old Man Ben.
Yeah, he says, I
So-
don't know Obi-Wan, but
Yeah, am I
there's
glad to
old
see
Ben.
you?
Exactly.
He says, "Am I glad to see you?"
Right.
Yeah.
So they can, if they do a second season, it can be what everyone thought the first season was going to be.
What it should have been.
What's this whole weird? It would be so weird because it's like, okay, now we'll give you what you wanted, but you're already a little jaded from the first one, so we're going to be hypercritical as it is.
and kind of do a Rise of Skywalker and retconning kind of thing.
But what they
Yeah.
have yet to do is show Obi-Wan's intensive training that he undergoes in order to become a Force ghost.
And see, that's the thing. Like they never even had to bring Vader back into it. It could have all been Force visions. I think it could have been memories, and even kind of like when Luke fights Vader on Dagobah.
Yeah.
It was all kind of a Force hallucination, kind of.
We get a moment of that to where Obi-Wan sees Anakin in robes in the desert whenever
Yes.
he's there with Leia.
But then they never
and-
explore that.
No, it was just him just kind
I
of
really
having
wish they'd have done more of that.
Yeah.
I really do.
I agree.
And I don't know. I've heard that actually Qui-Gon actually physically Force ghosting is actually kind of breaks George's canon.
Because he never did before. He was only
A voice.
A voice, right. Because he was one of the first ever to become one with
Right.
the Force like that, I
Right.
think.
I don't know
Canon-wise?
exactly the lore behind it, but apparently it kind of breaks lore. but I'm kind of okay. I mean,
it's
I
fine.
wanted Force Ghost
It's
Qui-Gon.
fine.
Well,
Bad.
yes.
Right.
I mean, because there is stuff that could fit in another season, but it would just have to be ran a lot differently than the way this one was. Because you can have stories of Ben, and you can maybe have some extra adventures of Obi-Wan Kenobi, but you touching on that main storyline any more than you already did, it's going to get a little smudged.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like a season 2, I guess, would be redemption. But if they're going to do it the same way they did season 1, just leave it alone. Just let us have these moments that we enjoyed and move on.
They just need to pick some writers and trust them.
Right.
And some of them are going to fail.
Right.
Some of them are going to be great, though.
Yeah.
I think they're just meddling too much with it because it's so huge and it's so much money at stake.
Well, this
that
is
they can't
something-
keep their corporate hands off of it.
Right. Well, it's something we see in nerd culture in general because, I mean, look at what's happened with DC. I mean, with the Snyderverse stuff, with the Snyder Cut, that WB had its grubby little fingers involved in it, and Snyder couldn't do what his vision was. So, I mean, imagine if Disney was doing that to Dave Filoni and Kevin Feige. How do we say it was Feige?
I always say Feige.
Feige. I don't know.
Feige.
Kevin. Feige. Whatever. It feels like they've got a lot of free reign with what they do because of the fact that
Fans seem to really enjoy what they do.
Yeah. And I think Disney kind of lets them do what they do. But when it comes to anybody else, they're like, no, we got to make sure we screw around with this.
Well, and they let Ryan Johnson go ham for some reason, too.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
They
I don't know.
need they need to watch what Game of Thrones did, and they need to see just what happens if you get writers that get a little bit too frisky and a little bit too out of control and not put in check to what can actually fit into the way the show's flowing. You get people that will never spend a dime on your merchandise anymore. They will consider it a chalked up loss for their viewing time.
Let's face it, though, that's never going to happen
Not
to Star
for Star
Wars.
Wars,
It's
no.
too big.
Doesn't matter
It's
how
too
bad it
big.
gets.
It's honestly too big to fail, honestly.
But that's also the mindset they have, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think there has been some releases like from the CEO, like he wrote a book or something, and a lot of Star Wars fans wanted to read it because it had details of them buying Star Wars and stuff. And he's even said, like, if we don't do it right, if we don't do something that the fans stand behind, we're going to lose their trust. And then from there, we'll kind of be screwed trying to regain their trust. And you can kind of see that with the products that they've made.
Congratulations, you're there.
Yeah.
You're getting there really fast.
Yeah,
buddy.
and even people that really liked the sequels are starting to kind of come around to the Book of Boba Fett and now Obi-Wan, and they're starting.
I'm one of those because
Right,
I
right.
love the sequel trilogy.
Right.
I unabashedly love it.
Right.
And I trusted whatever they did because of how much also I love Mando. Like, I just love it so much.
Yeah.
And then now I'm afraid. Well, no, actually, I'm not afraid for Ahsoka because Filoni created Ahsoka. Like, it's a
Right.
character of his.
Correct,
And
yeah.
he is not. I mean, and the entire time that he spent creating her character in the Clone Wars and during Rebels was just chef's kiss.
Yeah.
It's perfect. So I trust him with her.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
But when it comes to Star Wars as a whole, I'm nervous now because I don't think I've ever really disliked anything Star Wars very much until now.
recently,
Until
yeah.
now. And all it took was the one thing, but with someone as
Scooter Gang?
Do what?
Was it the Scooter Gang?
The Scooter Gang was part of it, but then again, hokey shit I don't care about hokey shit. It's
Yeah,
fine. It's Star
right,
Wars. So
yeah.
there's going to be hokey shit. And to me, that was just hokey, whatever, moving on.
Yeah.
But the way that I think this past series was handled with a character so precious
Yeah.
to the entire name of Star Wars, and for it to be handled the way it was, now I'm nervous. And I don't think I've ever felt that way before.
And as fans, we should have had the biggest villain on screen. Darth Vader should have been the biggest villain on screen. It was not Darth Vader being the biggest villain on screen for Star Wars. We also had the big villain of Tree Branch. Tree Branch was a big villain.
In the Leia chase scene.
Tree Branch, way stronger than needed to be.
More people got past Vader than they did the Tree Branch.
Yes, they did.
Just saying.
And then you also had the
Door.
Door
was big.
Door was big. Also,
Paula slap.
rooftop. You had rooftop parkour. Now, rooftop parkour, that was the only way to travel.
She's 10. Why couldn't they catch her?
That's just she's slippery. She's slippery, dude.
I swear, she did not look 10, man. She looked 6.
Yeah, she's itty bitty. She's
could
itty
have
bitty.
hucked something at her, ping her in the back of the head. She's going down.
Tiny is sitting
She's gonna
there.
Cry.
If you yell
She's
loud
a little
enough,
kid.
if you yell loud enough, a child will like poop on themselves.
Yeah. I mean, come on.
Oh, I can see it now. Like Reva is just like doing flips and back flips and doing somersaults and just force jumping off of things, and Leia's just and Reva just you hear, and then she gets pissed and she engages her lightsaber to come down for a kill shot. And little Leia's just running away, and then Reva stubs her toe, and then she's tripped, and now Leia's still running. That's the show. We did it. We did it.
I mean, Reva, all she had to do was use big voice. It works with all little kids.
Hey!
Every time. They feel, oh, God. Yeah.
She laid a dookie in her pants.
Now she's embarrassed.
She's 10, Austin. She's 10.
She's embarrassed. She pooped herself.
So, to summarize, I liked moments of the show. Moments of the show added to Star Wars for me.
Moments of greatness mixed in with a bunch of dookie.
Yeah.
I think that it was a really expensive candle on a really shitty cake. That's what we got. We got the dual Vader Obi-Wan scene right there, and then that was total epicness on top of just a really shitty cake. Yeah. That was, nobody's going to eat, but they'll always talk about how cool that candle was.
I'm ready for a fan edit, because you could just edit out everything that I didn't like, and then boom. I liked all that, but it was kind of disjointed.
You can put it in one episode.
Yeah, exactly. One episode's all we needed, really.
Yeah, just an hour and a half long mini movie, and then cut out all the fat.
And soon, Tiny will watch the last episode, and we'll be able to know.
You really do, just for that scene.
I mean, I'm going to watch it.
That is a very powerful Star Wars scene.
I meant to watch it, and I just dropped the ball.
Us talking about that moment does not do it justice. Like, whenever you see it, it'll be like we never said anything, because it'll take over. Like, it's that good.
You also have to watch very closely with the scene where Darth Vader talks to the Emperor, and the Emperor says, "Are you distracted?" And Darth Vader says, "No."
I also want
does happen.
Ooh, I want to see Palpatine clapping cheeks. Not all of it, but how did Rey come about? Who's Rey's mother?
Oh, it was
I actually looked this up today, but I don't know if we have time.
You looked up videos of Palpatine clapping
no,
cheeks,
I looked
as
up,
Tiny said?
I looked up how Rey's parents and where they came from.
Please, I need to. Yeah,
They were clones.
I knew it.
Yeah. So basically,
she's the child of a clone.
Correct.
Yes.
And she inherited Palpatine's power because she's Palpatine basically cloned himself.
That's less cool.
Yeah.
I want to see a walking testicle.
Strike me down. Strike me down. Strike me down.
Woman.
Oh, yeah. Show your anger. Strike me down. Strike me down. Okay, that's it.
That's all I want. That's all I want out of Star Wars.
Everything is coming exactly as I have foreseen.
That's great. Oh, boy.
And as a sequel to last week's episode,
Yes.
today is part 2 of Tiny's terrific 3-way of the First Earth Battalion.
Yay.
Also known as the First Earth Army. I mean, just, a couple different names. Anyway,
Can we
Marcus.
review? Can we review just a little bit?
Yeah. Okay.
Super snappy.
Yeah.
Okay,
Recap.
so the First Earth Battalion was founded by Jim Channon, and he was teaching remote viewing, hyper awareness, a bunch of parapsychological abilities to United States Special Forces Army soldiers. They were stationed at Fort Meade, and they just kind of was teaching a bunch of new age things and trying to promote peace and not war and not violence, even though violence was still a part of it. He was trying to make something different than what he was inundated with due to his experiences and his time spent in Vietnam.
And you teased that today is about the abilities that they were learning or what they did kind of thing?
What they were doing more so than how they were formed, which was the last episode.
Yeah.
There was a place called Goat Lab that was at Fort Bragg. It has been disbanded within the last few years. It was used by them and other members of the military to teach like medical training, dealing with wounds out on the battlefield. They would take the goats, injure them, and have soldiers come in to an anesthetized goat, and they would have to learn, how to cauterize, a limb blown off, how to sew veins shut, how to save soldiers' lives that were hit by IEDs, bullet wounds, what have you. So realistically, they were doing really bad things to these goats.
Yeah, that makes me sad.
Yeah, it does. And like I said, recently it's been disbanded.
Gotcha.
And recently, 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Was it said why they chose, were goats just like abundant in the area, or?
They did a study and they found that goats are an animal least likely to form a connection with a human. So that's why they chose goats. They originally thought about dogs.
Oh, no.
So,
no.
Thankfully, they didn't do that.
So it was almost the men who stare at dogs.
Yes,
Yeah.
they almost were. And that's even mentioned in the movie and in the book.
But goats are they're like puppies that can eat tin cans.
And they have horns and they beat the crap out of each other.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny when you watch them fight.
Yeah, as long as they both walk away from it.
Yeah, I mean, they have super thick skulls. They're not going to hurt each other much. They're not going to mortally injure each other. Anyway, one ability that they were trying to do for kind of like assassin-style missions to mitigate collateral damage, they was trying to induce death in a person by staring at them. Hence the name Men Who Stare at Goats.
Yes.
So they would all take, their time at Goat Lab, and they would sit in the next room, and there was like a two-way mirror, and they would stare at this goat and just do what they could mentally to make this goat die. One man, I can't remember his name because I was a dumb and didn't write it down.
George Clooney.
John Ronson.
No, it wasn't George Clooney's character. It was another one. I think I mentioned the hamster guy in the last episode. It was that one. So if you want to go back and I said it, then it's there. If I didn't, well, then you went back for nothing.
Gotcha.
then gotcha unintentionally. He stared at this goat and it died. It took him a couple hours to achieve it. Like he was picturing fire and death and it getting shot and the Archangel Gabriel coming down and drawing a sword and cutting the goat's head off, and then the goat dies. Then they autopsy the goat to figure out how it managed to die from this, and more or less it had a myocardial infarction. It had a heart attack and it died. And he was the only one that managed to achieve this, and then he went on after they disbanded and wanted to see if he really did it because, well, let me backtrack a little. A little down the road, Special Forces soldiers would sneak over to Fort Bragg or ones that were already stationed there and try to get them to do it again because they wanted to see it happen. And he was not really able to achieve it except one other time with a goat. They took 20-some-odd goats, painted a number on their sides, and put them in another room. He had a soldier select a numbered goat at random, and that was the goat that he would kill. And I think the number selected was 17, and he ended up killing 13 instead. Because he was like, I couldn't see the goat, so, I got one of them, just not that one. And it also had a heart attack and it died.
And it turns out goats actually just have another extra sensory, sense that we don't have, and they get really nervous when people look at them. And turns out that he's actually just causing such extreme anxiety attacks in these poor animals that they're dying from heart attacks.
Well, the
Or they
second
just sit
time
there
they
for
never saw each other.
Or they just sit there for so long and the goat just starves.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
That's what I thought you were going to say earlier. Instead of a couple hours, I was say like a couple weeks. He worked on this goat. It was in this room.
The hamsters, however,
Oh, no.
took him a long time. Took him so long.
They're more resilient.
Well, John Ronson, it took him a while to figure out which one of them actually was able to kill the goat. He had to talk to 4 or 5 of them before he finally found the right one. He said, yes, it was me. I feel horrible about it. Also, you know what? Fuck hamsters, because I'm trying to kill this hamster that I hate.
He said I was impartial to the goats. I really didn't like the idea of killing them. I really want to kill this hamster.
Yeah. So over
It's seen too much.
over the course of a couple years, he was trying to kill this hamster. And he would videotape his sessions in the room with said hamster, and his wife told him, show him the video, because he said, that's the only other thing I managed to kill like this is this hamster. So he shows him this video, and the hamster is acting peculiar, but not peculiar enough that a person who doesn't own a hamster would be able to know that, because he looks at him, he goes, you see what he did there? He was acting kind of weird. That's from me.
So if I stand out for the front yard and Willie, my puppy, is in the front yard, if I'm like, I'm going to make him shit. You just watch.
It's kind of like if your dog goes in a circle clockwise before he poops. This time he went counterclockwise.
Okay, yeah.
It was something like that. Very niche thing. And he's like, you see that weird thing he did? That was me.
That was my mental powers.
Yeah, pretty much. And John Ronson was like, okay, yeah, that's a little odd. And he goes, well, at least that'll appeal to, my hamster reading crowd. And he's like, yeah, see? And he's like, well, I thought you killed him. He goes, well, I didn't want to show you that because I don't trust you just yet.
Right.
And then, over the course of several hours or days, the book's not very specific. He finally does show him the video where he's sitting there and he's picturing the Archangel Gabriel, because this is how it worked the last two times. He pictured Archangel Gabriel coming down, drawing his sword and striking him down. And that's when the hamster dies.
And you see a kitchen knife at the top of the screen just working its way down. That knife's not really there. That's what I did.
Yeah, if only. So he managed to kill a goat, 2 goats, and a hamster.
All with his mental brain powers.
And what we never got to see is that day he moved the hamster's cage to closer to the air conditioner vent, and the hamster was actually just slowly freezing to death while he was staring at him.
Is this one of those things that you have to already believe it for them to show you? It's like, if you're too skeptical, though, you won't actually see the magic. You have to go ahead and believe us, and then you'll believe.
I mean, and this coming from the guy, and this is me, I'm pointing to me here, this coming from the guy that sees a light in the sky that isn't blinking, and I'm instantly like, alien! Alien right there! It's not a blinking light. That would have been a
Black Pyramid out in the sky, Marcus.
Marcus, do you see that? That's a Black Pyramid. But yet I'm sitting here thinking, this dude didn't really kill a hamster or a goat with his mind.
2 goats.
You got to keep up with the numbers. This matters.
Yeah.
I don't. That's the thing. We have enough skeptical tools in our toolbox to be like, yeah, come on. But yet, the United States government sanctioned all this crap. That's what's so crazy about it.
For almost 30 years.
That's insane.
From 1970 to 1999.
Well, how do you think we kept the goats in check? Huh? They would have already had an uprising of goat culture if it wasn't for the fear of the psychic Americans coming to keep them stamped out. They're afraid of us, and that's what they did.
Or the gunshot wounds or horrible leg amputations. At least they were anesthetized.
Imagine being at Fort Bragg, where they would sometimes imagine being all the soldiers there just doing your normal routine stuff for being in, was that Army? Fort Bragg?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was top secret. Goat Lab was top secret.
But to think about it, some top secret stuff's going on, but then you accidentally see some of it.
Yeah.
And maybe they just did a lot of this just to make people think that there was actual top secret. You know how they compartmentalize things to keep things secret, So it's if they know this, if they know about the goats, then we know where the leak is. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's
support. They had to, at some point, bring in a semi-trailer load of goats. How did they sneak these goats into this building on Fort Bragg and nobody know? You're gonna see a livestock trailer. They're pretty freaking obvious.
Well, they were using their powers of invisibility.
Oh yeah.
See, they can project their invisibility onto the truck.
He was only able to kill 2 goats, but he was able to phase over 2,000 goats into the facility. You see, he doesn't brag about that too much because he took the lives of 2 goats, but the phasing of the 2,000 would have probably been high up on my list. But to each their own. Maybe he's not a braggart.
Right. And there were a couple of things that come about from the First Earth Battalion trying to be peaceful and less than lethal. They came up with a couple of very interesting weapons that some of them are even used today, like for riot control. They come up with something called sticky foam, which they would spray you with it, and it would just almost incapacitate you. It would not necessarily keep you from moving, but it would be a struggle. And that's used in several applications for riot control. Kind of interesting that something that's supposed to help promote peace.
Right.
But
I think they were thinking comparatively. They're like, compared to a gun, this is peaceful.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well,
it's also highly flammable.
Oh, geez.
Because, like I said, I'm going to keep going back to the movie.
Right.
Doesn't George Clooney's character have some sort of little device? It's like little plastic
That's
weapon.
the Predator that we were talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the little
Okay.
P-shaped thing.
The pressure point kind of stick.
Yeah. Do they still use that? Is that actually an effective thing? Or
It was used. He tried to use it on like chakra points.
Yeah.
Which, if you know anything about chakras, I'm not getting into that. But,
Yeah.
you know.
New agey
pressure
stuff.
points.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a variation of a Kubaton, if you really look at it, except it had a hole that you could like hook like a thumb or a finger.
So
or
it wasn't
something
all
like
that unique.
It was, but it wasn't. It
Yeah.
was like a Kubaton Plus,
Gotcha.
more or less. They also come up with a net gun and an electric net gun.
Like a cartoon?
Yeah.
A lot of this is like a
electric one-
cartoon.
Yeah. Except the electric one would shock the bejesus out of you.
This is the kind of military branch that would happen if we were in charge of one. They're like, okay,
Right.
you guys have a military branch. Now, what are you going to do? Mystical powers?
Jedi?
We're going to make Jedi.
You find Marcus in a room with nothing but just candles, and he's got like 3 different eyes painted on his face, and he looks like his eyes are open, but you walk in the room and you realize it's just his face paint. And then he opens his eyes and finally looks at you, and the third one in the middle of his forehead blinks.
What's next? So this ends segment 2.
The next segment will be more of what they're doing now and a little bit more into individuals as opposed to things overall.
Excellent.
Because they are still active, yet not in an official military capacity.
Thank God.
And you know, that all happened in the past, and I'm sure we'll get into a little bit of what they're doing more presently next week. But we're going to take a trip back to the 1990s.
And our favorite rocket ship?
Going on our trip in our favorite rocket ship to the 1990s, where they were a powerful time for Southern poets. The Southern poets of that time were inspired and driven by their contributions to the last decade of the millennia. And they weren't afraid to tell you their visions of faith, broken dreams, plans for the afterlife, or the heritage of their people. I've got several different Southern poets that I've brought to the group today. We're going to start with Dane. Dane, what Southern poet do we bring to the table?
The Southern poet that I have in front of me is Martina McBride.
The
A very well-known Southern poet, I
Yes,
believe, because
yes.
even myself is not before the podcast, not much of a Southern poetry fan, I would say. Some might even tell you that I hate it. But I believe the form that we've been able to bring it, I think I enjoyed a whole lot more. So I'm excited to read a work by Martina McBride.
Yes.
Titled Broken Wing. Here we are.
Beautiful.
She loved him like he was, the last man on earth. Gave him everything she ever had. He'd break her spirit down, then come loving up on her. Give her a little and take it back. She'd tell him about her dreams. He'd just shoot him down. Lord, he loved to make her cry. You're crazy for believing. You'll never leave the ground, he said. Only angels know how to fly. And with a broken wing, she still sings. She keeps an eye on the sky. With a broken wing, she carries her dreams, man. You ought to see her fly. One Sunday morning, she didn't go to church. He wondered why she didn't leave. He went up to the bedroom, found a note by the window, with the curtains blowing in the breeze, and with a broken wing, she still sings. She keeps an eye on the sky with a broken wing. She carries her dreams. Man, you ought to see her fly. With a broken wing, she carries her dreams. Then you ought to see her fly with a broken wing. That's
Wow.
sad.
Wow.
That's really sad.
That's really sad.
Did she die?
There's no telling.
She flew away.
So she
Were you
died?
not listening? She flew.
I feel like
I was confused.
I
I'll
almost
be
feel
honest.
like it's a story of triumph. because she didn't let that broken wing keep her down. She still managed to fly
in a circle
and go achieve what she needed to achieve.
You know, and he found that note by the window, and then he just looked and noticed that there was a curtain blowing in the breeze where she'd opened that window, and she flew away.
What did the note say?
Yeah.
The note said,
We don't know.
Later, f***er.
You ain't gonna keep me down. I fly with a broken wing. Now,
Wow.
that was beautiful. It's moving.
Yeah, it's heavy. It's heavier than I thought it would be.
It is heavy, but much like the story of this next Southern poet's people,
Okay.
it's a very heavy story.
Okay.
But he tries to make the best of it and let you know all of the bright side of his people. And that brings us to Tiny's Southern poet.
It does. It does. This Southern poet's name is Timothy McGraw. The title of this beautiful work is Indian Outlaw. I'm an Indian outlaw, half Cherokee and Choctaw. My baby, she's a Chippewa. She's a one of a kind. All of my friends call me Bear Claw. The village chieftain is my pawpaw. He gets orders from my mama.
Oh no!
He gets orders from my mama. She makes him walk the line. You can find me in my wigwam. I beat on my tom-toms.
Composure. You got
It's so emotional.
I'm so into it. I'll be beating on my tom-tom. Pull out the pipe and smoke you some. Hey, and pass it around, 'cause I'm an Indian outlaw. Half Cherokee and Choctaw. My baby, she's a Chippewa. She's a one of a kind. I ain't looking for trouble. We can ride my pony double. Make your little heart bubble. Lord, like a glass of wine, I remember the medicine man. He caught running water in my hands. Drug me around by my headband. Said I wasn't her kind, 'cause I'm an Indian outlaw. Half Cherokee and Choctaw. My baby, she's a Chippewa. She's a one of a kind. I can kill a deer or a buffalo with just my arrow and my hickory bow. From 100 yards, don't you know, I'll do it all the time. They gather round my teepee late at night trying to catch a peek at me in nothing but my buffalo briefs. I got them standing in line, 'cause I'm an Indian outlaw, half Cherokee and Choctaw. My baby, she's a Chippewa. She's a one of a kind. Cherokee people, Cherokee tribe. So proud to live, so proud to die.
And you know, just the ability to take the descriptors of his people and to bring it to the forefront like that and just be so vulnerable and naked with it was very powerful from that man.
Almost
It
quite
was.
literally in his buffalo
Briefs. Yeah. Just then there one, and every society and culture, you've got life, you've got death, but then you've got the afterlife.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think that a Southern poet would want their afterlife to be like? And this brings us
A bar.
to Marcus's Southern poet. Marcus, what do you got?
Oh gosh, I'm not gonna lie. That last one upset me a little bit.
Was it the masturbation reference?
or the drug usage.
There were so many things.
Was it the drugs?
No,
That's what got me.
We'll talk about it
Oof.
later.
Okay.
The Southern poet that I have received is Joe DeFay.
From the French Quarter.
His work called "Prop Me Up Beside the Jukebox If I Die."
That's the entire title of the poem?
Yes.
Correct.
Wow. I didn't realize
I
that
like
would be
it.
that long.
Well, I ain't afraid of dying. It's the thought of being dead. I want to go on being me once my eulogy's been read. Don't spread my ashes out to sea. Don't lay me down to rest. You can put my mind at ease if you feel my last request. Prop me up beside the jukebox if I die. Lord, I want to go to heaven, but if I don't want to go tonight, fill my boots up with sand. Put a stiff drink in my hand. Prop me up beside the jukebox if I die. Just let my headstone be a neon sign. Just let it burn in memory of all my good times. Fix me up with a mannequin. Just remember I like blondes. I'll be the life of the party, even when I'm dead and gone. Prop me up beside the jukebox if I die. Lord, I want to go to heaven, but I don't want to go tonight. Fill my boots up with sand, put a stiff drink in my hand. Prop me up beside the jukebox if I die. Just make your next selection, and while you're still in line, you can pay your last respects, 1 quarter at a time. Prop me up beside the jukebox if I die. Lord, I want to go to heaven, but I don't want to go tonight. Fill my boots up with sand, put a stiff drink in my hand. Prop me up beside the jukebox if I die.
And you can make your next selection 1 quarter at a time. That's just respect for that Southern poet.
But then everybody would just play the same Hank Williams song.
How do you know?
Family tradition.
Well, it could also.
God.
Or
when will that song die?
And then you got Merle Haggard as well, who's another very famous classic Southern poet, and he's got several different works that people would often request. It is if you're in a specific kind of bar, you're gonna get requests for people to hear these poets. Just I'm not sad enough right now. I need something to put a tear in this beer, much like this story from this next Southern poet duo. A duo. 2 different Southern poets combined their works to create Neon Moon by Kix Brooks and Roni Dune. When the sun goes down on my side of town, that lonesome feeling comes to my door, and the whole world turns blue. There's a rundown bar across a railroad track. I got a table for 2 way in the back where I sit alone and think of losing you. I spend most every night beneath the light of a neon moon. Now, if you lose your one and only, there's always room here for the lonely to watch your broken dreams dance in and out of the beams of a neon moon. I think of 2 young lovers running wild and free. I close my eyes and sometimes see you in the shadows of this smoke-filled room. No telling how many tears I've sat here and cried, or how many lies that I've lied, telling my poor heart she'll come back someday. But I'll be all right as long as there's light from a neon moon. If you lose your one and only, there's always room here for the lonely to watch your broken dreams dance in and out of the beams of a neon moon. Jukebox plays on, drink by drink, and the words of every sad song seem to say what I think, and hurts inside of me. It ain't ever gonna end, but I'll be all right as long as there's light from a neon moon. If you lose your one and only, there's always room here for the lonely to watch your broken dreams dance in and out of the beams of a neon moon. I think that pretty much culminates about every emotion that a person can feel in those 4 different Southern poems.
I definitely felt a lot of anger and shame.
Right. Yeah. Confusion.
Yes.
Right.
Now, what is the part that you feel most ashamed about?
I prefer not to say, honestly.
Yeah, that's personal. That is personal. There's a lot of people listening to this, so you do not have to get into that.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Mm-hmm.
That's real deep.
Plus, I would not do a good job at articulating just how offended I am.
I mean, they were pushing buttons. They were pushing buttons, and they were really telling you how it was back in the 1990s.
It's like they had a heat-seeking emotion missile, right?
Yeah.
And sent it right at me.
Yeah.
With the curtains blowing in the breeze. It'll just stick with me for a long time.
And I think we're going to take our broken wing and fly out of here. Thank you all for listening to this episode of Nerded Through the Grapevine on podcast people that send out podcasts to your ears, like iTunes and Spotify and Good Pods that listen to there. There's an indie slider. Whenever you go look for podcasts, it's really cool. So you don't have to listen to all the people who are already famous. You can listen to people like us, which is a lot of fun. And then there's a Teespring link in the description where you can go get a t-shirt that's got our logo on it, and you can wear us about town as you gallivant and shout from the rooftops, look at me doing force flips in my cool t-shirt, and everyone will love to see it.
And if you want to discuss how many celebrity podcasts that you've stumbled across in the past few weeks, go ahead and let us know so we can bitch about it together on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook by looking up at Nerd Grapevine. And that's also the same to our Patreon at Nerd Grapevine. On Patreon, you can donate a little bit to the cause and get a shiny holographic sticker with our logo on it, as well as unlock content to Grape Flavored Gaming and future stuff that we've got coming down the pipe. You will get first access to it. Now, don't be flaunting that first access pass in front of all your friends that aren't Patreon members, because they're going to get pissed at you, and it's going to cause you to have a little bit of...
Through the sunshine on his back, make him peel, chip, and crack. A little patching keeps him up to par. When I'm in a traffic jam, he doesn't care if I say damn. I can let all my curses roll. Plastic Jesus doesn't hear because he's got a plastic ear. The man who invented plastic saved my soul. Plastic Jesus riding on the dashboard of my car. And if you want to hear the rest of that poem, you can join us on Discord. There's a link in the description. We're on there live, uncut, uncensored, and irrevocably circumcised.
I think poem is the pronunciation.
Yeah. That's how it's spelled.
Pronunciation.
Poing.
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 Also, if you're doing force flips in our shirt, please send us a video so we can put it on our YouTube channel, which we have been adding things to. Check that out. But if I don't know, I keep having this thought. If a grape, if a beautiful, fully fleshed out, beautiful, juicy grape is like our version of a Jedi, what would the Sith equivalent of a grape be?
Hey, Marcus, when Siths give you grapes...
I try to think of really abstract things that don't make any sense at all.
Good.
Then we end the show because I'm tired.
Good.
You need to go to bed. Let's go to bed.
Let your anger fill you.
Good night and good night.
Oh, take your weapon and strike me down. Take your weapon and strike me down. Strike me down. Your journey to the dark side will be complete. Strike me down.
Good night.
Oh!
Good night. Good night.
Yeah, I have no idea what I was going for with that.